Caitlin and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will be recapping everything that I read in June and listing off everything that I hope to read in July. So let's get right into it. The first book that I read in June was Violet Thistlethwaite is Not a Villain Anymore by Emily Krempfoltz. I gave this book 3.75 stars out of 5 stars on Fable. And it's signed. If there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I love a reformed villain. And in this story, it's even better because she was never truly a villain. She was never evil. She was just used to be like bad, if that makes sense. I won't lie when I say that the beginning of this felt a bit slow, like the pacing wasn't great. It did eventually pick up towards the end, or I guess towards the halfway mark, but I was really struggling to get through the first half of this book, I'd say. I had the most intense gut feeling on what one of the tropes in this book would be, and I was 100% right. And if you don't want to know, go ahead and skip forward a couple of seconds, but it was the miscommunication trope, because every time that they didn't tell each other something that they were feeling or thinking, I just knew that it would come back around and that the other person would be wildly upset and that it would blow up in their faces. And I was right. I will say though, it made sense for the plot. If you haven't read this book, you might be like, why in the world would a miscommunication trope make sense? But it does make sense. I just don't like that trope literally at all. So I was a little irritated, but it did make perfect sense to the plot. There definitely were some twists in this book that I didn't see coming, but honestly, I would say that most of this book was pretty predictable. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I don't personally mind when a book is a little bit predictable because I don't always love being completely completely blindsided. That's what I was looking for. This one felt like a good kind of predictable, especially since it's a cozy fantasy book. It feels very fitting that it wasn't over the top, insane, and you couldn't predict any of the twists. Next, I read Light Guard by Haley Turner, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Fable. This book is also signed. I love to see religious symbolism in this way. I think it is genuinely so entertaining to see it in this way, especially with how it's generally portrayed in society. And I think another really good example of how this religion, religious theming comes off is She-Ra, Princesses of Power. And if you have watched that series, I highly recommend this book. I can't believe that I haven't really truly encountered this trope before now, because I've heard about it before and I'd probably lightly read about it before, but I think my new favorite trope of all time is she saves him. Especially in a fantasy novel. I see a lot of myself in the female main character in this book, Corinne, specifically with her upbringing and her borderline OCD-ness. Actually, I think it's just OCD, but I think I have borderline. Anyway, the tension between the two love interests in this book was genuinely perfect. I love them so much. This book is the first in a duology, and the second book is not out yet. And I am so serious. I don't know how long I can wait for the second book because I love these characters and this plot and everything about this book so much. Next up, I read Smoke and Scar by Gretchen Powell Fox. I also gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Fable. And as you probably could have guessed, this is also signed. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I love to read a series or a duology or whatever that is pre-planned. Most, if not all, of the plotting for the books is already done out and finished before they publish the first book, so that it doesn't feel like they're just doing fan service or like pulling from fan theories or like that kind of thing. And I know that realistically, that's probably not what happens with people that don't pre-plan a series, but I don't know. I just love knowing that literally the final drafts of the rest of this trilogy are like in the author's computer somewhere. I think that the trial like plot line was very well thought out and like very intentional, and I really appreciate that. Now, this is a slow burn. And when I say that this is a slow burn, I mean literally this is a slow burn. Like you might think that you like slow burns and that you've read slow burns and that you know what a slow burn is. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Because, like, literally, this is the slowest slow burn that I've ever read in my life, which actually, is that true? I think that is true. This might be the slowest slow burn I've ever read in my life, and I loved it. I ate up every second. I thought for a really long time that I wasn't the kind of girl that liked slow burns. Like, I do love insta love or just like very quickly realizing you love someone, but a slow burn is so good. Another fun thing is that before this book, I don't know if I've ever read something where the female main character is the fae and the guy is the human. And I really loved switching it up. Also, this book is like she saves him, that trope, but times like a million. And I loved every second of it. I'm not even joking. The last like 10% of this book had me freaking out. Like the pacing was so good, and I was like flipping so quickly through those last couple of chapters to like figure out what was going on. So good. And the last book that I read this June was The Mistake by L. Kennedy. I gave this book 4.5 stars on Fable. I love a hockey romance. So truly there was no way that this was gonna like get screwed up. You know what I mean? Like I was always going to love this book. Before like going into this book, I remembered seeing a lot of people talking about after the show came out how they were really excited to see Logan's actor like grovel and beg and yearn and blah 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 during like his season. And I agree, I'm very excited to see that. But am I insane for saying that he could have done more begging in the beginning of this book? Like, am I crazy for thinking that he could have done more? Maybe it's just because we only got shown like a couple of the things he did to like win back her trust out of like the list she had. But I don't know. I feel like he could have done more begging and I would have enjoyed it. One like micro thing about this book that I really love is that both Logan and his brother know and understand that like addiction is a disease and that it's not just something that like people choose to have. It's like something that people genuinely struggle with and that can be really hard for like people to get over, and that they don't actually blame their dad fully for his addiction. I think that's really important to show. I will say, I feel like a big reason that I enjoyed this book so much more than The Deal when I read it a couple years ago is because I now have like actors and actresses to like put in like face to a name, if that makes sense. Like I know what like the actors look like so I can imagine them playing out certain scenes, and I think that just makes it like 100 times more enjoyable. And in that same vein, I can almost like imagine how certain scenes in this book that like might be seen as problematic or just like old school are going to be changed in the show. So I'm very excited to see how they like incorporate new things into a newer plotline. Also, to Elle Kennedy's credit, she did not, spoiler, give these two a third act breakup when I really thought that's where it was going for a second, and I deeply appreciate that. She has my utmost respect for that, actually. There were definitely moments when I was reading this book where I like cringed, but for the most part, this was great. So that was all of the books that I read in June, but there is one more book that I am currently reading, and that is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I am currently only 10% into this book right now, and it's going to take me a while to read it. I know that, but I did want to include it in this since I am actively reading it. I know it's still like super early in this plot, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So yeah. I also want to say that this is my like first time in a really long time actually reading off of my TBR instead of just like mood reading after making a TBR. And I'm really proud of myself for that. And now we can get into my July TBR. First up, we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. If you watched my most recent video, then one, you would already know that I was reading The Mistake and Smoke and Scar, but you would also know that I got this book for my friend Rachel's birthday, and I have actually not even read it yet, which is insane because I love Emily Henry's work and the paperback has been out for several months now, but I just never got around to reading it. So I am really hoping to finally get into it this coming month. Next on the TBR is The Score by Elle Kennedy. I am just blazing through the off-campus series right now because I am just genuinely so hung up and like so attached still to the show that I just want to revisit this universe in any way that I can. And I want to be prepared for Allie and Dean's season. So I need to know all the context, even though I've been majorly spoiled for quite a few things. I'm hoping that I can find even more things that I didn't know and that I will be excited to see on the screen next year. Next is Air of Illusion by Madeline Taylor. I have been more recently like really diving into romantasy, and I am having the best time. I don't know why it's taken me so long to like actually get into this genre because genuinely it's absolutely incredible, but I am really enjoying it, and I actually met this author recently at a book convention, which if you haven't seen that video, you should absolutely go and watch it because I met a ton of romantasy authors, but I loved talking to Madeline. I think she is so cool and so sweet, and she even recommended a Criminal Minds fanfiction. So that's how you know she's a real one. And lastly on the TBR is Crowded Tables by Annalee Thomason. I also actually had the honor of meeting this author at a book fair, and she is just genuinely so sweet, first of all, but I am so deeply obsessed with these covers. I think they're very unique. I haven't really seen covers like this before. And this specific story is about grief, specifically the loss of like a grandparent. And as someone who has experienced that loss recently and is currently going through that grief, I think this will be a great way to feel and express those emotions and like kind of understand those emotions in a way. And that is all of my July TBR. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!